Good to hear your voice,
Well,
Carl.
we can hear you, Carl.
That's good.
Are you watching the results and partying like we are?
I, of course, am. I was very nervous early on in the night, and I have seen that there are suspicious-looking trucks rolling up to certain areas of the country, which feels much like a kind of bad rerun of 2020. But honestly, it looks like it's basically not going to be enough.
Carl, I
So,
think you were right. He had to come back and he had to win. And I think you were right, man. I hate to get too excited, but you were friggin' right.
it had to happen, man.
But to be clear, this is the last time we're going to take a British person's advice on who should be running the country. That's all I'm
Listen,
saying.
man, just saying we know what's good for you. That's all.
Well,
So,
we're sitting here waiting. At any moment, Donald Trump is going to speak, and we believe it's going to be a victory speech.
Yeah.
So we may just have to have you hanging out with us.
Well, can I?
There you go. There you are.
We got you.
Can I ask him something about the British condition? What I'm
Sure.
curious about, the people around you in the UK, how do they feel about this election? How do they feel about Trump? How do they feel about the brat who fell from the coconut tree? Like, where's sentiment at across the pond?
I mean, people don't like Kamala, but they don't like Trump either. We don't really spend that much time thinking about it. It's more the political class that thinks about it, and the political class in Britain are almost entirely behind Kamala Harris. Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, the only major party that are pro-Trump, basically, which is kind of disgraceful when you realise that the Conservative Party and almost everyone in it is basically pro-Kamala. And it's like, okay, that's gross. You're meant to be our right-wing party, so what's happening here? But frankly, they're just going to be... I mean, British breakfast TV is starting now, and they look miserable. Oh god, do they look miserable? And so it's across the aisle. You know, they can hug each other in Parliament later on today, weep into one another's shoulders, and Donald Trump will be on the phone hopefully.
What do you
piece of his mind?
Do you think this has any implications or indications for you guys over in the UK?
No, not really. Unfortunately, British politics is very stagnant. And we've got another 5 years of the Labour government, which means nothing interesting is going to happen here for quite some time. But it is nice to see that at least you guys have something good going on. Like there's a ray of hope and sunshine on the horizon. For us, it's going to be 1,000 years of darkness. But at least for you, it might be quite decent.
So we still went to the
well,
weather
it's
then.
the UK. It's going to be dark, but I get what you're saying. I mean, we're excited, but we don't want to be too optimistic, and we're trying not to go to sleep because when you close your eyes, that's when the mail-in ballot fairies come.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, it's already
unload
happening.
thousands of ballots.
I've been retweeting some of it. It's already happening. But,
But-
I think it's too late.
Yeah, I
might be
don't
right.
know if that's going to matter. I mean, right now we've got 93% reporting
What is he up by there?
in Pennsylvania, and Trump is up by about it looks like 230,000 votes.
I think he's broadened his gap since
His
92%.
his lead is increasing in PA. If
Too
he
big
takes,
to rig.
that's it. He wins.
Yep.
And Nevada is 68% in. It's leaning Donald Trump. Nevada doesn't really matter at this point. If Arizona goes Trump, which we believe it will, and Trump wins PA, it's done. But actually, I don't believe he even needs those. With Maine's
It looks like Wisconsin's going to be enough. So he's got Pennsylvania, he's got Wisconsin. That's it.
So the New York Times has him at greater than a 95% chance of victory with an estimated 306 electoral votes and a 1.2 popular vote lead, which
Yeah.
is the mandates. That means we have told the woke, the left, the insanity enough.
Wow. There was a time where Kamala Harris needed to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and it looks like there will be a huge repudiation of that, and Donald Trump will win all three of the Rust Belt states.
Carl, why don't you give a quick outline about the story that I mentioned earlier? How you had talked about how Donald Trump had to come back and win. Why don't give our listeners, our viewers, a quick outline of that?
Sure. Basically, the current American cycle has taken on the aspect of essentially kind of a movie trilogy, a sort of 3-act movie trilogy. So you get the initial success of the heroes in the first film. In the second film, you get the return of the Empire, as in the Two Towers in Lord of the Rings, or the Empire Strikes Back in the Star Wars trilogy. And then, of course, you get the final payoff in the third movie, where the heroes realize, no, this is what we have to do to win. The team comes together, and of course, darkness is vanquished forever, which means the Democrats. Hopefully, they'll be vanquished forever. These stories they resonate for a reason, right? There's a reason that all major film trilogies have this kind of 3-act structure to them, and you even see this reflected in the films themselves. This basic 3-act structure is because this is the general sort of pattern of how humans understand the world around them is always built into narratives, and there's a moral payoff at the end of these narratives, and we're actually seeing that play out in real time in front of us in real life politically. So it was very clear to me a couple of years ago that it's, oh no, wait a minute, you know, 'cause like when Ron DeSantis was running, I love Ron DeSantis, but it's like, no bro, it's not your time, it's Trump's story, we're a part of it, we've all got a place, and you're not the guy yet. It could be you later, but it's not you now.
I think that was the first time I heard you mention it, was talking about Ron DeSantis, as like you were like, I like DeSantis, but not now. It has to be Trump. Trump has to come back. He has to come back and win to finish the story. So
exactly, and it has to be Trump to shove it in the faces of the Democrats. Those I'm not gonna, I don't know where you're streaming, so I'm not gonna give my opinion on what happened in 2020. But it has to be Trump to come back and destroy them. It has to be him, because he's the one that they particularly hate and screw over. No, it has to be him, and it has to be them learning a lesson from this. They're not going to learn any lesson, but it has to be him destroying them for it to be essentially the correct moral payoff to the tale. And we seem to be getting the good ending. So
I sure hope so.
It's because we live in a simulation that it's a trilogy, and you know.
Well, I will say, you know, there is still a 5% chance that we lose this thing, and Trump doesn't win.
Less than
5%. But I will say, Carl, I appreciate you broadening my horizons here, because you mentioned that there are people on British television who are going to be crying over Trump winning. I thought I was only going to get to watch American liberals cry. But there's a whole other category of liberal I get to see suffer.
So there is a Conservative Party member and former politician called Rory Stewart, who runs a very popular podcast in Britain called The Rest is Politics, very pretentiously named. And he tweeted, I think it was yesterday, Kamala's going to comfortably win because of these factors. And he was wrong on all of these points. And people were pointing out, Rory, you don't know anything about American politics, do you? And of course, come this evening, he's been doing a live stream with his fellow left winger, Alistair Campbell, and they had this particular point that people clipped and cut out because it was so good. He was like, "Well, if Kamala Harris was winning, we'd be correct," and then he just starts giving his "why Kamala Harris won" spiel, and it's like, Rory, are you delusional? Like saying, well, if things worked out as I said they would, I'd be correct. And yeah, no kidding, but they didn't, and you've done no introspection, no self-reflection, and you are not the political authority on America that you thought you were.
The New York Times saying Trump will very likely be the next president, and they are projecting he will be the first Republican in decades to win the popular vote.
Yeah.
I just want to point out,
literally 20 years.
I just want to point out that it appears to be the case that just like Kamala Harris's husband, Trump only beats women.
Oh my God.
Well, he saved America from a woman president twice now. I mean,
Twice.
Yeah.
I think the guy needs to be added to Mount Rushmore or something, right? But you know what's interesting is that what this is showing is like legitimacy lies with Trump. There's the sort of, the ancient Chinese concept of the mandate of heaven, where it's like, look, it's just chosen by the heavens. You don't really get to say, you don't get to capture it. It's either with you or it's not with you. And the popular vote is a good way of revealing who has this mandate. So even if, like, technically, on various technicalities in the system, I managed to get enough electoral electors in the states and whatnot. Yeah, okay, fine. But it doesn't have that kind of oomph behind it where, no, most people wanted this. And we have this at the moment where, like, the Labour Party is in power with a large majority on 20% of the vote. Right, so 80% of the people did not vote for this. They are not legitimate. They do not have the mandate of heaven. Whereas Trump getting the popular vote here and, of course, winning, he will have the mandate of heaven. So basically, whatever he does now will be legitimate. And everyone will be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. This is what we voted for.
The coping is just copious.
It's good, isn't it?
I got one tweet. They said, at this point, it's abundantly clear that it was never really but her emails. It was but they're females.
How do you feel about that as a female voter?
I'm glad that she's not winning. Honestly, I think we can have a woman president. I think that would be great for our country at some point. I would be in full support. I don't want to get too much hate here, but I love Nikki Haley. I don't think it was her time now. I'm a Trump fan over a Nikki Haley fan.
You two should talk.
But I
He
do love
loves
Nikki Haley, and I think that an American president or a female president for America could be great. But the thing is, if Kamala Harris were to win, she would make sure that no other woman was ever elected president in the history of the United States of America. She would ruin it for all of us. I would maybe want to be a president one day. We'll see. I'm only 24. I got some time. But I'm glad that she's not the first. Same with Hillary. Why do we have to throw the worst women up there? Women can be so incredible and so smart and accomplish such amazing things for this country. And to throw the worst two representatives of women and American women is just embarrassing. Like, we're so much better than that.
I think the compelling thing here is that we were told constantly that, oh, it's not going to be called on election night. It's going to be a close election. You might have to wait a few days, maybe even a week to get the results. No, it came in tonight and actually relatively early for an election night. This is a mandate, as Carl was saying earlier. And I guess all I have to say is cheers to MAGA, and hopefully we can make America great again.
Cheers.
Thank you, Donald
You're calling
Trump.
You're calling it Elon calls the election.
Forget New York Times. We're calling it here at Timcast first.
No.
No, we're not. We're not.
I
We
do-
send that actually.
do
We're not
think
calling
that-
it first.
PTSD like everybody else.
I know. I'm like, when did the ballots show up? When did the
So I do think that it is good that Kamala Harris is not going to be the first woman president, because I do think that legitimacy matters, like Carl was saying. Like our first woman president has to be someone that the people pick, that wins the nomination and beats the other opponents that are running and wins the presidency.
And is qualified at a bare minimum. That's the one thing Kamala Harris has just never lived up to. She's never been qualified.
Clearly,
So
but
can I interject here? Because I think that you
Sorry,
guys
I forgot you were still there.
I think you guys are approaching this in the wrong way. So the remarkable thing about Margaret Thatcher was not the fact that she was a woman, right? The remarkable thing about Margaret Thatcher is that she was good. She was a very effective politician. She was a very strong capitalist during the Cold War and made a great ally to Reagan, right? It was through Reagan and Thatcher that the Cold War was won. And the fact that she's a woman is really not what people talk about.
More
when they talk
Reagan,
about
but I
Thatcher.
understand why you want to say some Thatcher. But
So it's I wouldn't worry about that. I would worry about just finding someone who's really good for the moment. And if they happen to be a woman, then great. If not, then okay. But trying to fulfill an arbitrary category, well, you'll end up getting someone like a Kamala Harris because the category becomes more important than their techniques. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's honestly, I really believe it. I really believe it.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.